Yeah, right here there's pine beetle all along the road here.
Rick Stock, a provincial forester in the town of 100 Mile House, says the mountain pine beetle infestation is the largest in recorded history.
Like all these trees are dead in there. We're gonna lose 80% of our pine in the province.
The grain-sized pine beetle is native to the forest around 100 Mile House. In the winter, the beetle prefers to nest and mate in lodgepole pine trees. Lodgepole is the most widely harvested tree in BC, and it covers 60% of the land base in the 100-mile timber supply area. In the summer, great droves of beetles mass attack the older and weaker trees.
Well, we'll take a walk through there, and I'll just show you how many trees are dying.
Red pine needles means the tree's already dead and the beetles have moved on. What surprised Rick and foresters across British Columbia is that the beetle isn't just attacking mature pines. Now it's gotten a taste for younger trees as well. The death of the next generation of pine stands means soon pines won't be commercially harvestable in British Columbia for at least 50 years. Another sign the beetle's been through is a blue stain found in the wood.
Yeah, so you can see the blue stain's gone right in there.
The beetle carries a blue fungus in its mouth, which seeps into the wood and blocks the flow of water and nutrients. The joint attack of the beetle and the fungus dries out the tree in a matter of weeks. The wood then cracks or checks.
Like if you get a check here and a check there, then the tree's not going to be good for lumber anymore.
After an attack, a tree only has about 5 years before it's worthless as dimensional lumber. In response, the province has upped considerably the annual allowable cut, above a level what many environmental groups say is both economically and environmentally sustainable. In 100 Mile House, workers at the West Fraser Mill are working 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. They're trying to process as much diseased lumber as they can before it's worthless. It's a race against rot.
Some people are concerned that the mill will only be viable maybe for another 5 to 10 years.
Paul Warwick, along with the plant managers, insists that the pine beetle is not a problem, but a challenge they will overcome. Employees are optimistic that as pine becomes scarce, the mill will be able to rely on other types of trees.
We have a lot of other species. We've got fir and we've got spruce. The mill could stay feasible for a long period of time.
We don't want the world to think the sky is falling, because it's not.
Mayor Donna Barnett says even though the pine beetle is damaging the quality of lumber, it can still be used for construction.
This is our building. It is made out of lodgepole pine. It has a bit of blue stain in it, but you really don't notice it unless you walk up to it. We know we'll lose some mills, but to what nature, how many we're going to lose, we don't know. Maybe with luck we won't lose any.
When you fly over all that red area, it's pretty depressing actually. I've lived in 100 Mile all my life. My dad worked in the plywood plant, and when he came up to 100 Mile then, he worked in all the little sawmills. Well, if there's no mills here, why would they need somebody to take care of the forest? So am I gonna survive here in 100 Mile? I'm not really sure.
Green on this map are pine trees. The red is the beetle. Starting 100 years ago, forest fire suppression greatly decreased the total area of the province burned, increasing the number of pines by 300% and the number of mature pines from 17 to 53%. Suppressing forest fires may have protected the value of the lumber, but it also put BC at a higher risk of succumbing to a beetle attack. Outbreaks in the past ended, like the one in '85, when the cold temperatures in the late fall or early spring killed the beetle. But that is no longer the case. Since 1950, parts of the interior of BC have seen big jumps in average temperature. 2.5 degrees Celsius in some parts.
You know, we don't get those cold winters
We
anymore.
used to get cold winters.
We haven't had a significantly cold winter.
Also, because of the warming, the beetle has been able to expand its range northward and into higher elevation. So such cold and inhospitable heights as the Rocky Mountains have proved to be no defense against the beetle. There's now nothing theoretically stopping the beetle from overrunning the entire country. But that's not all. Other pests like the pine beetle are on the rise as well.
Like the pine beetle's kind of old news already, eh? Yeah, see here you can see the galleries.
Those galleries are not formed by the pine beetle. They're formed by the Douglas fir beetle, one of about a half dozen emerging pests that could further cripple the industry. The pine beetle has been ravaging BC's forests for about as long as the scientific community has been in agreement that humans are major drivers of the warming. But these communities do not see themselves as climate change victims.
The worst impacts haven't hit yet. They've had visual impacts. They've had, probably some tourism, recreation kind of impacts. But the real economic impact is going to hit them, 10 years from now when a lot of their local wood supply is gone.
Stephen Shepard is a professor of landscape architecture and forestry at the University of British Columbia. He's working across disciplines to create visualizations of a climate change future. He started the project to help raise awareness about climate change.
People say, 2 degrees, 3 degrees, what's the difference? Well, I don't think people want to live in a 4-degree warmer world. It doesn't look a lot like the world we're in now.
Among the 3 members of 100 Mile House, there was a mixed reaction to the science of climate change. Provincial Forester Rick Stock was a recent convert to the science of global warming.
We're all quite happy to jump in our cars and drive here and there, but it all adds to global warming. We don't really think about that too much.
Rick sees the changing forest all around him, but it was the popular media that helped him understand global warming.
There was some guy on TV, I think he was from the United Nations or something, and he was 70 years old, and he even said he didn't believe that it was global warming, and now he does. So, yeah, I don't think it's just a cycle anymore.
Meanwhile, Paul Warwick and the mayor aren't as easily convinced.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it global warming or what I would call it. If you look back over history of particular areas and whatnot, the cycles are pretty obvious. We go through stretches of cold periods, we go through stretches of warmer periods, colder periods again. I mean, this isn't the first time that we've been under a beetle attack.
So there's always been this change in weather, a global change. And of course, the past few years, we've had a lot more global warming. And who knows what Mother Nature's going to do? She's in charge.
Mother Nature did show she can still pack a punch. Just last January, when a vicious storm ripped through Stanley Park. Meanwhile, out east, it was a snowless Christmas, and people were wearing shorts in January. And right around this time, the Conservatives in Ottawa started cutting checks and linking the crazy weather to climate change.
It's a communications lesson. I sort of think of it as a communications lesson. People are naturally more concerned and aware of things that happen close to them. It's just human nature.
Jim Hogan is the president of the public relations firm Jim Hogan & Associates and has over 30 years' experience in the PR game. He's also the co-founder of a climate change website called Desmogblog that aims to shed light on the credentials of the so-called climate change skeptics.
When it hits in your backyard, it's very different. And I think one of the problems with climate change that we've been struggling with over the years is that it's such a big, distant, okay, sure, I'm concerned about it, and it really sounds bad, but what does it have to do with me? And the weather may be the answer to that question.
But there are other things going on besides crazy weather. Public opinion across Canada and much of the Western world now holds the environment as the greatest threat to health and home.
Global warming. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. We didn't ask for it, but here it is.
If you look at the 10 hottest years ever measured in this atmospheric record, they've all occurred in the last 14 years. Isn't there a disagreement among scientists about whether the problem is real or not? Actually, not really.
There's very few practicing scientists who are actually questioning the science behind climate change, or the issue of whether or not humans are creating it, and the results may be very serious. So there's a kind of a false scientific debate that's been constructed in the media.
The constructed debate, sowing confusion among the public, allowed for the rise of Al Gore to be the voice of reason. Gore, the non-scientist, has the credibility, while all those thousands of atmospheric scientists for the last 15 years were easily discredited.
Our trust in science is changing.
UBC professor of sociology, Ralph Matthews, says as a society we are more aware of the risks created by science, and therefore less trusting.
Science now is institutionalized in many settings. So you have scientists in government, you have science in industry, you have environmental groups with their scientists. So you have opened the possibility of competing scientists and competing sciences. And that in and of itself then starts to reduce the perceived legitimacy of science.
I don't think there are sort of ideologically positioned scientists on both sides of the issue. But I think what this denier community has managed to do is paint that picture for people. The media is so quick to jump to that model that there's two sides to every story. I mean, there are some stories there aren't two sides to. You know, this is one of them.
Getting both sides of the story is a common formula used in political reporting when the truth is unknown or not well understood. Charlie Smith, editor of the Georgia Straight, believes the political style reporting reflects the scientific ignorance of most journalists.
Journalists, generally speaking, are not that great with numbers. And the numbers tell a story that is impossible to ignore. And I think that was Al Gore's genius. He actually did something that journalists don't do. Was he actually pulled out slides and did numbers, and he showed this. And anyone who watched it, you know, and then he'll juxtapose a slide of, you know, this is what's going to happen to Bangladesh and West Bengal when the temperatures go up this much, and this is 60 million people, and they're going to be refugees here. And, you know, it was absolutely overwhelming. You know, we talk about illiteracy and literacy, but I think innumeracy is also a big problem, and it's coming home to roost in the public's understanding of climate change.
The public's understanding was slowed by the debate in the media. It's been shown in the past, regardless of the quality of reporting, even if it's biased, the sheer number of reports on a controversial technology will push the public towards opposition. So perhaps in these last 15 years, from the point of view of the general public, the risk or perceived risk of climate change either didn't outweigh the benefits gained from burning fossil fuels, or that fossil fuels are just too ingrained in our lives to simply reject. Now it brings us to today, where perceptions have changed, and we are now demanding solutions from our politicians to stop climate change.
What we've seen in the last just few months here in Canada has been a sea change in sort of public perception and awareness and concern about climate change. And I think that is in part due to, you know, the science, the IPCC reports, some of the intellectual things like the Stern Report.
Sir Nicholas Stern, the World Bank economist, who just came out with his report called Global Warming, the Greatest Market Failure the World Has Ever Seen. That comes from an economist, from a World Bank economist.
Canadians see a lack of leadership on climate change in this country, and particularly in Ottawa.
So it's clear we got two problems in BC and in Canada. The first one is global warming, and the second one is the total lack of any political action to address it.
It's quite clear that something seriously is changing in climate patterns.
I also work a lot in the interior of BC. We got a huge swath of the interior of BC forest, which is now red. It's dead. I'm really sad to see that.
The weight of stimuli that start hitting the public all around the same thing gets them to believe that something of a cataclysmic nature is occurring.
The issue has been obscured by lobbyists. The time is over for that. The time is for action now.
The media attention, the Al Gore movie, just a lot more coverage in the media, on the news, on television, radio, films. There's been a sort of an onslaught of this, and I think it's really picked up steam. The wave is sort of now hitting, at least the first wave. The first wave is sort of awareness and concern. Yes, it's real. Oh my God, we've got to do something. But I think there are a whole series of waves yet to come.
One question we as a people need to decide is how we react when we hear warnings from the leading scientists. The era of procrastination, of half measures, of soothing and baffling expedients, of delays is coming to its close. In its place, we are entering a period of consequences.
I'm broke, bitch.